Ooh, checking, cash, credit, card. Hi. Welcome to another spontaneous live stream. It's actually not as spontaneous as my one earlier today. Not that it matters. I've been thinking about this one for like a whole hour or so. And I realized actually a little earlier on, maybe even thought about it days ago or something, or even earlier, that I would like to share my journey as I've begun investing, because I think there's a lot of little nuances that I've been learning that none of the experts have mentioned, and then some that all the experts have mentioned that I feel like are worth mentioning. So going to just ramble a bit and tell you some story, but also try to stick to a little bit of a framework, and that is to tell you basically what I did. Look, I have some notes here. What I've learned so far, and a little of why I'm telling you this, my reasoning behind it. First of all, let me give you a little background and get into what I did. So a couple years ago, I invested a tiny amount. I'm talking like $100 at a time, sometimes $20 at a time, less than $2,000, more than $1,000 into some cryptocurrency, mostly Bitcoin, a few other things. Did some learning, like you can get on Coinbase and get paid a few dollars worth of several of those cryptocurrencies just to learn and go through some lessons. So I did some of that, and I have a little portfolio I haven't actually looked at in a while. Just again to give you some background of how fresh and new I am to all this. And even though I have been a homeowner for a long time, which does shift your mindset a little, I found owning crypto, and I've actually invested in GeoShips is the name of that company, like $800 at some point a while back. Pretty much just a gamble, sort of shot in the dark investment. But other than that, I've had like no retirement account. One of those people that Gen Xers that slipped through the cracks, dropped out of high school, went to college a long time, but never really took the time to learn about investing, even though, as I mentioned, I'm a homeowner. And so I'm not completely naive to the whole thing. And I actually went to business school. One of my master's degrees is in organizational management, and we covered the stock market a little bit in that year and a half of study. And I've been a business owner since the 90s and an entrepreneur off and on, and a freelancer. So like I've studied some about economics on my own, and I've looked into the stock market on my own, but I've never really invested in the stock market. So that's where I found myself. And after about 2 years ago, I had a really pretty dreadful health, just hit a pretty low rock bottom, one could say. After a long spiral towards that, as one does, right? And found myself without any social support, and with my finances completely in ruin. And I say completely. Thankfully, I did not lose my house, but it was close for a little bit there. And just found myself in a place where I did not expect to find myself in my early 50s for the last several years. And 2 days ago was my 55th birthday. Happy birthday to me. And as one does, also, I'm making that fresh start, for it's 55. The big 55 feels like a good turning point. And again, when I look back, I don't even have to look back. I've always really thought I would be like in a really better financial spot than I am now. And I know I'm not alone in that. That's like the very classic textbook story of everything that I am and have learned. So um, I won't bore you with my woe is me story too much. I'm just trying to let you know that I empathize if you're in any kind of similar place or have been or worried about that, or maybe in a completely different place. But um, I mean, who isn't worried a little about finances right now, unless you're already investing, in which case you're probably not interested in this video, although who knows. If you're one of those people who for whatever reason is, I'm soaking up advice these days, so bring it on. If you got some tips for me, or you want to give me a ticker name just to look up, I'm building watch lists and all that. So back to what I've done so far, my backstory. Back in October 2025, I had been working. So back up a little bit to about 2 years ago, almost exactly 2 years ago, I was at a real rock bottom state where this time of year for my birthday, I had to ask my mother for money just to try to make sure I covered my mortgage, not lose my house, and sold like had a small gold and silver coin collection that I sold at terribly low prices, especially given where they are now. But, I was happy that I had a little bit, like turned in my dime collection, my change jars, like a really, really scraped the bottom just to get by. And thankfully I did get by. And in that transition, because before that I was doing Airbnb, and I've, I had I had an eBay store long ago, and then an Etsy store. And that's kind of been just sitting idle since 2016, which I'm now getting back off the ground, picking back up the Sleeping Dragons company um, as we speak. But 2 years ago, I had not started picking it back up yet, and I went and got my substitute teaching license, and that was a pretty low point for me. Like, even though I have a master's degree in special education, and I love working with the kids, but the system really stresses me out. I don't function well in our regular systems. And I had dropped out of middle school, actually skipped middle school, dropped out of high school, and then found myself substitute teaching in middle school in, well, like one of the most challenging situations. But proud of myself for doing that, and it was a wonderful experience. I fell in love with 50 or so kids in that school, and that was good. But in that time, then thankfully, I got a different job freelancing as a data annotator, a job I had never heard of, and probably a lot of people haven't. And that job really saved me. And for the last almost 2 years, up until about a month ago, I did that job 20 to 80 hours a week at, fairly low pay for a college graduate, but decent pay for work at home at your own schedule type of work. And it tapped into a lot of my brain in ways that I haven't had work do in a long time, working with different LLMs, that's large language models, or also known as AI. And I learned a lot about AI, and I did a lot of fact checking. So I learned a lot about US history and global economics and myself and humanity. It was a very So I went to college for 15 years and have two master's degrees, and I learned more in the last 2 years working with AI in that job, as far as textbook type of stuff that I learned in all of my 15 years of college, I think. Now, it's easy to say that, and it's been 20 years since I went to college, so to be fair, that's probably not a fair statement. But in any case, I learned a lot, is the point. And right before my data annotation job just dropped out from under me on December 12th of 2025, right when I was working really hard and doing really well and feeling really good about it, and I still don't know why. Maybe I fucked up. Maybe they ran out of funding. Maybe They just hired a bunch more people and, phased out some of us that were getting the higher pay in that rung. It's the kind of job that nobody tells you anything about. So I could make a whole nother video or series on that, but I um, only mention that because it's relevant to my story about investing, in that since I started, I then almost immediately after that, shortly after that, lost my regular income. And so I haven't been able to continue with the plans that I set in motion. So that's the backstory to what I did so far, almost up to now. So the rest of that is that in October 2025, when I was still working, I spent about $500 on an investment course about day trading, basically. And I think it was a good investment. I have some mixed feelings about it. There was a lot of upselling, as there often is, and I'm grateful that I didn't do the upsell, even though I had 5 or 10 extra $1,000. I would have just been investing it. But I can see how having a coach, having a system is definitely worth the money if you have the money. I'm not in a position where I have even the money to invest yet, let alone pay for coaching. So that course in and of itself was a big investment for me, but I used it to catalyze myself into investing, because I know, at least for myself, when I put money down on something, then I care more about it, and so I'll show up more for it. So I figured even if the course wasn't the greatest, it would force me to start investing, and indeed it did. And actually, as I said, the course was decent enough. So there's actually parts of it that I haven't finished. Like, I intend to go through it all. I went through it all, or most of it, at least once quickly, but then I've been going backed up and going through it slowly, and I'll be digesting that. I digest things slowly. So I can say that since I invested in that course and digested most of it and started paying more attention, and I think I can't remember, I think it was on Fidelity maybe, where there was an account where you like play with it, a pretend $1,000. I did set that up a while back around that same time. I never really got active with it. Um, and I set it up before I really felt confident that I knew what I was doing. So I did that course, and then I started listening to a couple of online experts, and of course the way the algorithms work now I run into fairly regular various investment stuff. And again, I dabbled in some of that stuff before, so it's not new to, not completely foreign to me. But this is the first time that that I put a little bit of money into the market, so I pay a lot different attention. And just to get you caught up to where I put money in, because it's a long, slow story. And I think, not I think, I know a big part of why I want to share this long, slow story of my own process is exactly because it was so long and slow. And I'm hoping that in my sharing it, if there's somebody out there who's hesitating and just not sure about investing, um, I just want to urge you to just start. Like, don't take as long as I took. You'll learn as much as I've probably learned in the last, few months in a shorter time than I have if you just jump into it. Now, that said, do not take that as financial advice. I'm clearly not a financial advisor, and I, would remind you, don't play with any money that you can't afford to lose. As the saying goes, the saying is there because it's very true. You could lose it all. Now, that said, actually, there are ways to mitigate your risk where you can put in stops and you don't have to risk, any, like, the chances of you losing it all are fairly slim. Unlike when you go to the casino, play the slot machines, like you're fairly going to lose it all, unless, again, it's like, unless you put a stop and you say, when I'm down to my last X amount of dollars, I'm walking out the door. Well, you can do that with the stock market as well. So I took that course in October, and I took longer than I'd hoped to digest it. And then it wasn't until December 2025, a couple months later, after looking at different platforms and hemming and hawing, and also still working my butt off and, for an hourly fairly low wage and trying to gather, still, I have debt. I have a lot of reasons one would not invest. Um, and again, why I'm sharing this story, because like if you just went to a financial advisor, they would tell you, pay off your debts first, get a savings account, cushion, all that is wonderful advice. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying I live in a different world, I think, than some of those people live in. And I am, both trying to survive and also trying to thrive and get back, having bounced off the ground once again in this life. I'm feeling inspired and motivated to uh, claw my way back up as high as I can. And I like the saying, rising tide lifts all boats. I think right now there's a lot of turbulence going on. That's an understatement probably. And so if I can be a lighthouse or a calm in the storm, or a source of inspiration or motivation or hope that there might be a way for you to find your way out, then again, that's why I'm making this video. So in December, I finally braved putting $1,000, $999 actually, into a Schwab account after researching a lot of different ones. As far as I can tell, all the experts say they're all kind of the same. I've never heard anybody really highly recommend one or the other. I think, to avoid giving advice, like there are nuanced differences to the different platforms. I think there used to be more difference. If I'm reading it right, there used to be a lot more fees, and I think Robinhood came in and changed that all up. Now, I could be wrong on that. Again, I am not an expert, just sharing my perspective, my experience. So I put $999 in a Schwab account, and I broke it into 3 chunks. And I put one chunk in my very first Roth IRA, individual retirement account, and I put one chunk in a traditional contributory retirement account, and I put one chunk in an individual investment account, just like a regular day trader account. And I put $333 in each of those 3 baskets. So I'm sharing all that precise detail to keep it all in perspective and let you know, like, on the one hand, that's a pitiful small amount. On the other hand, it'll be cool to see what I can grow it to. And also, it's a fairly low risk, right? Like, even though, yes, to me, it's a fairly high amount because I don't have any income right now, but I will have income again. I'm confident of that. And I'm 55 and didn't have a retirement account, y'all. And I'm probably not alone. I might be in the minority. I hope I'm in the minority, but yeah, I know my fellow Gen Xers didn't get the greatest memos about retirement planning. I know I got a lot of message about how it was pointless and the whole thing was going to fall apart by the time I got to retirement age. And indeed, lo and behold, kind of seems like it is. Hi, Pixel Drifter. Good to see you. So, I'm not trying to defend myself for my lack of retirement account, but I'm just letting you know where I'm at, so that to put it in perspective, in case maybe it'll help you feel better about where you're at. Maybe it'll help you realize that, better late than never. I definitely do feel like I'm a day late and a dollar short to the whole retirement game, but yeah, better late than never. So another reason why I'm sharing this, because I implore you, if you're younger, let's start now. And yeah, if you're older, start now. That's the main message I want to get across. Like, just do it. Just start now. Right now, there's a lot of, as I mentioned, turbulence going on. There's a whole lot of scary messaging going on. And the mindset shift that I got when I bought my house and have had that asset for a long time was profound. And like any mindset shift, of course, there's positives and negatives. There's nothing's really good or bad, right? But it was an up leveling of my mindset. And I do feel like becoming an investor, even with $333, is also an up leveling of mindset that's worth doing, even if you were to lose that. Now, again, hopefully you study a bit before you do it, and then you're very unlikely to lose it all. You might lose some, but if you think about the education that you're going to get, if you actually just get your fingers in the pie, I was going to say, no, your brain in the game would be a better rhyme there, and and try it out. You're going to learn a lot. And that said, there's lots of ways to do that. I'm sure you've heard before, but I will reiterate. Like, if you're not the kind that wants to pay any attention to it and it just ooks you out to think about, for one, I would encourage you to maybe examine that mindset and see if you can up level that. But for two, you can do index funds, just general. There are lots of ways to do it, real simple and easy. They're still going to outperform our plummeting dollar value. Almost anything is better than just keeping your money in dollars right now, from my perspective and from every expert I've listened to in the recent years. So, and definitely recent months. So did that get me up to where I'm at? Almost. In December, I put that money in 3 chunks, and I want to remember to share some of those little nuances that came up for me in case someone else is going through these very beginning steps and feels held up. And again, my intention is hopefully to save you some of the delay. Like if you're in your 30s or 20s or teens even, like, don't delay, man. You learn so much. Money is power. It is what's making the money go around, not the money go around, the world go around. Neither of those is true, but it is a big part of being a human being in modern society. And you don't need money to be happy, but it fucking helps. And of course, there's a different threshold. Everybody with a lot of money, a lot of people talk about like around 500,000 a year. It starts to change. More money doesn't mean the same thing, but if you're like the increasing number of us that are below that median line, then this one's for you. Don't delay. Whatever's getting in your way, just plod along and get your way, through it. You could literally start with like $10 right now, $25, $100. I'm not sure if you could start a Schwab account, but I bet you could. I bet you could start with $10. I don't remember seeing anything that said you couldn't. I started with $333. So, one thing that came to mind as I was going through that did hold me up a little bit, that I didn't count on, and maybe I didn't do it right, was a small delay of about a week, was putting the money in the account. There's it's not like just transferring it between your own bank accounts. I had to open a new account, transfer it from another account, and wait for it to transfer there, like old school way, I guess I would say. It used to take that long to transfer money, but in this day and age, I've gotten spoiled and used to instant transfers and things. So there probably is a way, if I had more money, to do instant transfers. I'm sure there is. But for me, just starting out at that low level and feeling my way around in the dark, that was another thing that held me up. So just be aware of that. If you're running numbers in your head and starting to think about all the money you're going to make every week, as I did at one point when I was learning. And I guess I will mention that's another thing, is that the numbers that you might run in your head, while it's great to get excited and run numbers in your head and start to understand the potentials of risk and reward. It's also important to understand that the time, when you're looking back at time frames, you'll just see like when people get in and out of things and that total number. So it might say like 100% gain or something. And And it might not, that might have taken months. Usually it's taken months. And so, yeah, even a 10% gain in a week is pretty good, right? Like, an investment account, a 10% gain in a year is considered really good, for the most part, in the median range, I would say. Like, there's some pinky finger asterisks to that statement that I just made there. But point being, another thing that I learned pretty quickly, or kind of realized, was that when I was crunching numbers, I probably was thinking very optimistically about how I might be able to compound numbers, even if I'm winning, which I am so far. But yeah, it's a long game, even if you're thinking about day trading. Or now, to be clear, I have not tried day trading, or like that short end, hourly or daily. Haven't done that at all. I'm more on the weekly, monthly range right now, that mid-range, short to mid-range. I am getting my mind around the potentials of day trading, and I feel like once I'm more comfortable, that may be a direction I go. So another thing that I want to mention that came to mind just now, that I think the experts all mention as well. So this might just be like under the general guidelines of what I've learned from the experts, and that all experts would probably say, is to choose just one or two strategies to begin with. There are probably dozens or more of, like, probably at least a handful of main strategies, like day trading, like options trading, like index funds. And then within each of those, there are subsets of strategies that people use. So that course I took was about day trading specifically, or medium and short term trading. And so the one of the key core components of that is about, like, patterns, that chart reading, how you would look for patterns, what those patterns mean. And I won't go into that here, but I want to say that they're pretty basic. Once you have to spend a little time with them. Once you've heard a few experts talk about them from a few different perspectives, it's pretty easy to get the gist of at least the main handful or so that you need to really succeed in the trading arena. I think you don't have to get any fancier than that. And you could just find one strategy that works for you, just use that, and never have to get any fancier than that. You might, over time, with learning, start to see, oh, I want to try this or that or the other, because making money gets addictive. You can see how that's true. I guess my tip related to that more general expert tip would be, to apply a strategy that I apply to everything I learn, which is to find at least 3 different experts with different voices, different perspectives, different styles, different tones, and learn all you can from at least 3 expert positions. And of course, more than that is fine. The way the internet works these days, it's going to throw a lot at you once you've even done that, probably. But or if you're into just sitting down with an old school book, that's totally great too. I love me my old school books. By the time you've consumed 3 expert perspectives on whatever it is that you're wanting to learn about, you will have a pretty good handle on it, and enough of a handle to start asking good questions and inquiring about the things that are interesting to you or confusing to you, and untangling that a little bit more. So that would be my personal advice on one of the main takeaways from my personal perspective as a beginner here, is that it's just like everything else. If you just learn 3 expert perspectives, and then follow your own questions and interests, you will gain a pretty good understanding. Now, that said, Am I an expert? Hell no. Even the guys who are experts, will tell you they don't know everything. It's a vast, it's a vast world, and it is a bit of gambling. So there's always an element of nobody knows what's going to happen. Even the best experts don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of dynamics going on in the stock market. As I mentioned before, there are ways, though, to mitigate your risk differently than there are when you're at the casino, unless you're just really good at walking out at a certain high and low, which is exactly what you need to be good at doing to win at gambling of any sort, right? The stock market, I would say, makes it a little easier than the casino in that there's not, whistles that you don't have to go there, and it's, when you go there is in a window online, but you can set it up to give you notifications only at certain, when things hit a certain level. You don't have to look at it all the time is the point. And in fact, another key expert advice component that I will pass along that all the experts say at the very start of any lesson is about having a steady, not being emotional. So having that strategy, having that exit strategy, entry strategy, knowing, your own style and taste for how you're going to do it, and then sticking to that. Because if you start watching the market and you're watching things go up and down, especially when you're invested in them, you will start to get emotional. You'll start to make rash decisions, either to let things go, stay in longer than you might, which of course can be a great thing, but you don't have to, but understand that there's always that risk reward relationship. So getting less strict with your strategy could increase your opportunity for reward, but it's definitely also going to increase your opportunity for risk. So opportunity for risk. That sounded like it canceled itself out. I'm going to look at my notes here, which I did make. As I mentioned early on, I've already decided to let myself ramble about this because it's a topic I like, and I intend on editing out some parts of this. And I'm hoping to get something across of my I guess, naivete, my beginnerness, and again, in the hope that it will encourage someone else to just begin. So I think I got you caught up. Oh, almost caught up to where I am now. So I told you about putting it in 3 baskets, starting to invest. What I did was think of my Roth and my traditional accounts, which I still intend to learn some more about, as a little bit longer term. And in both of those accounts, I bought like one chunk of Amazon, which was 2/3 of my wad, and then some other miscellaneous things based on what I've learned so far about following trends, which, in case you hadn't heard, the trend going on right now is like metals, mining, rare earths for batteries, power, energy in general. All the experts are in agreement there. There's, of course, infinite nuances, and why, again, I advise listening to at least 3 solid experts, probably more in this day and age. But if you focus on finding your favorite 3, you will run it across lots of others in the meantime. And don't be afraid to change those favorite 3 either. Like you may find after a while that one of your favorite 3 falls out of favor, and then you could have another one fill that slot. I find it's good to have 3 experts on any topic that I like are my go-to experts when I want to learn about something or learn more about something, refer to someone about something. That's what I was trying to say. So after I transferred the money in there, I had to wait for it to get in those accounts, and then I was able to start trading. And one of the first things I learned was that it wasn't so. In my mind, I put $333 in there, and I was going to buy 10 different accounts, $33 worth of 10 different pies, and try to manage that, which now in hindsight was a crazy idea a little bit to start with. I did end up putting like 5 and 5 roughly and 10 in the 3 accounts. That's around what I have now still. It's going to go up and down a little, but what I quickly discovered is, oh, lo and behold, you can't actually just buy $33 of anything on the stock market. You have to buy like a stock or 10 stocks or however many. But so the price of the stock that day is, is determining how much you can invest in any given stock. That is a detail that seems trivial maybe to some, but as a beginner, it was something I wanted to mention because nobody else mentioned it, and I thought it was something that was worth mentioning. It threw me for a little bit of a loop for all the planning I had done for how I was going to set it up. My strategy blown in the first second as soon as I realized that. So then I had to reformulate my whole strategy, hence how I ended up with one Amazon stock for $200 and some that blew, 2/3 my wad in both of my longer term accounts, which hasn't been doing well, by the way, since it's dragging everything else down. But, when you're dealing with relatively small amounts, it's not super stressful. It's not, it's my little baby seed of a retirement account that may or may not grow at this point. It's not like a huge oak tree of a retirement account that would that would be stressful if I was watching it go down or up. And Amazon's, I trust it to hold. I'm still shopping there myself, so I think it's going to hold for a while. That said, I guess I'm doing all that saying because even just a few weeks later, or a month later, I might have done that a little differently and played more with some of the smaller stocks as I learned more, because using up a whole chunk that I plan on just leaving there for a long time, well, used up that whole chunk. But hopefully, my hope at the time was to have more money every month, like $333 or more to put in every month. And so that would have been a moot point if I hadn't lost my income right after I did that. So hopefully that'll change soon. Meanwhile, I will focus on the individual account mainly for my, learning and buying and selling, putting in stop limits, trying to learn my way through that, which was a little bit, like, not super scary or anything, but, at first a little scary. I'm already starting to get the hang of it after a few weeks. So where I am now after, I believe I wrote it down. January 9th was the first day that I actually bought a stock in those accounts. Actually, I tried to buy, spend all $333 on all 3 of those accounts that day after. So it was in December that I put the money in there, and then it took me a week to transfer it. And then I had a watch list, and I hemmed and hawed and wasn't sure for a couple weeks. And then I finally was like, oh, this is silly. I'm just watching the dollar plummet in value. And I might as well, that's why I bought the Amazon stock. And I thought I might as well start and see if I understand what I've been learning. And lo and behold, I am. Is it perfect? No. And am I perfect? No. I can already see that emotional bit is as a temptation. And I'm already like, oh, I think, so I got what's called stopped out of some things by putting a 10% stop loss on, so that was the most I could lose, which was my strategy that I decided to go in with. And I tried to pick stocks that I could see would potentially gain like 30%. Now, in my mind, that 30% was in some, I realize now, I didn't really have a concrete time frame in mind. And so, or in fact, I had no time frame attached to that 30%. And so without a time frame, that's a very vague, it's just, it brings it back into that emotional range, right? So that's something I'm working on to develop my strategy with more precision. But in the meantime, There's some stocks that I'm not sure about, that went ahead and just left a stop loss, and I've managed to even move those a couple times, and it seems to be working. And I did get stopped out of one thing at just a tiny profit, and I think I got stopped out of one thing at a little bit of a loss. But most of the things I've picked well. I think the time I took to listen to experts and learn how to read the charts and decide for myself what looked like a good bet seemed to be doing well, which is again, just following that general trend mainly, which is what most of the experts say to do if you want to win. It's like follow the trend line up, which is in energy, mining, metals. So it's not that hard. As I started off at the very beginning saying, the main message would be to remember it's easier than you think. You should probably just start today. Get started, and you'll see how easy it is. And you'll probably wish you had started sooner and taught your kids to start sooner if you have kids. I'm going to become a grandmother this year, and I'm super excited. And I am looking forward to teaching my grandson all about investing from the very early, as soon as I can, because I think back to that mindset piece, it does shift your mindset right away to that owner mentality, which is a much better framework to live from. So far, after 18 days, I'm up 11% on my basket, which, is a very little. It's like around $110 on my $1,000 investment so far. But that's not bad for 18 days. And, if I'd had that in the bank, it would just be losing value. So I'm happy about it. And I'll probably share some more updates as I go. Maybe I'll even make it a little mini series. The main thing, the reason I wanted to share this story is to encourage you to start today. Don't delay. That rhymes. See, no, it's true. I welcome your questions, your advice, if you got some for me. You can look at these notes here at the distance that I can see them with these glasses. See what I missed. I did the basics are easy. I did. You have to buy, stocks. Yeah, by the same amount. Individual amount of the funds. Price matters. Have a strategy and stick to it. I'm pretty good at sticking to my notes. Ride the waves. And it's a big ocean. I didn't say that, but it's true. I think you start to see that even the experts are talking all the time about how, like, needle and haystack, and like, this is too big of an ocean to really think you're gonna. It's a lot like the ocean. You're just trying to navigate from where you are here and now and keep yourself safe and get to where you're going. So I think that's a good metaphor to keep in mind. Follow 3 experts. Day late and $1 short. Why I'm telling you this, didn't get my dream. Money rules your life. Our lives. Oh, I remember one more thing I did write down that I didn't get to, which is about denial. It's a saying that's been with me for a long time now, which is argue for your limitations and they shall be yours. I've offended a number of people with that saying, and I think it's true. But lately I've been thinking about a counter, like another rung to that saying, which is deny your limitations and they shall own you. Argue for your limitations and they shall be yours. Deny your limitations and they shall own you. And I bring that up because underlying this reason that I'm sharing this, the reason underneath the reason that I want you to not delay and start investing today, is because as I did mention that I had this hard fall, but I was in something of denial about what a dire place I've been in financially. Not something, been pretty good at denial my whole life. I mean, I'm a human, so, probably just as good at it as the next human. But in my denial of my financial position, I allowed it to rule me, run my life, get the upper hand on my dreams. And that's cost me a lot. It's cost me a lot. And I don't want it to cost you a lot. So, yeah, get on it. That's all I got for now. Let me know if any of this helped you. If you have any questions, you have any advice, be sure to like and subscribe. And then you'll be seeing me soon. Ciao for now. Bye.